We stopped on the way back. Matt McOlish purchased the carbolic acid at a Green Bay drugstore. I'm the one who gave it to the baby on the drive home. The district attorney went to Green Bay and found the store where the poison was sold. And it did appear that Matt McOlish was the buyer of the poison, according to the receipts on file.
Okay, so now he's looking a lot less innocent.
Yeah. McOlish, has up to this point, had declined to make any public statements at all. It went to trial in early September 1928, so, pretty quick, couple months from the murder to the trial. Blanche pleads guilty. Like, she's already basically told everybody, I poisoned the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So she pleads guilty, and she's waiting to be sentenced. Matt McOlish pleads not guilty. His defense was that he was actually not in the car when the murder happened, and he was only told by Blanche after the fact. He didn't deny that he bought the carbolic acid, but he claims that he didn't know why Blanche wanted it. When he came back to the car and found that the baby was dead, this was shocking to him. He did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's his version of the story now. The jury left at 3:30 p.m. They came back at 8 p.m. that same day, and they declared that Matt McOlish was guilty of murder. They did not believe that he had no idea what was going on. Both Blanche and Matt McOlish were sentenced by the judge to life in prison. The judge expressed at the time of the sentence that he actually didn't want to sentence either of them to life in prison, but unfortunately the statute for first-degree murder said, I have to give you life in prison. Like, it's written that way, it's beyond my control. He was able to put some modifications on there, and he said, I can order that you can't be put in solitary confinement. I can order that you can't be, put to hard labor, breaking rocks in the hot sun. He's like, but the length of the sentence, I have no control over. He said if they ever sought a pardon from the governor, that he would not stand in their way. The prosecutor, likewise, did not want them to spend life in prison. He says, I have to prosecute you. You murdered a baby. I don't want you to spend life in prison either. But again, we don't have a choice. So he's like, I'm sorry about that. At the sentencing, 75 friends of the two had also signed a petition asking for clemency. The judge said, although he couldn't do anything about the petition, he would put it on file. So if they ever did seek a pardon, that this petition would be on file. The jury also specifically asked for leniency and were denied. The judge told the jury, I get it. You don't want to send them to life in prison, but we have to.
That's so weird.
Yeah. This was noted as the first time in Door County history that a woman had received life in prison. So that was a bit unusual in that sense. The sheriff personally drove the pair of them to Waupun State Prison, and so that's where they go into prison now. There's more to the story.
Okay, so there's things that happen in prison. First, before we jump into what happens in prison, I want your thoughts on why was everybody so wanting to let them go? Like kill a baby.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty thing that's going to get a lot of people to hate you.
Yes.
So why do you think that they look... I mean, we're not just talking the judge or everybody was like, we don't want to give you life in prison for this.
I have a couple thoughts on that. First of all, Door County at this point in time is very small.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everybody knows everybody. Like, we didn't talk about it, but apparently finding a jury was really difficult in this case. Because everybody knew them or knew somebody who knew them. So it was really challenging just to get the jury in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people were sympathetic because they already knew who these people were.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know the reason for this. This would be really interesting if somebody knows the answer. But I think people felt very differently about punishment 100 years ago than they do now. Because now, if you murder somebody and you get life in prison, we're kind of like, yeah, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like 100 years ago, if you got 15 to 20 years in prison, everyone's like, yeah, that's good. That's fair. And I don't know where the shift came in, where people went from being like, oh, yeah, murder is bad, but you still deserve a second chance in life, or, you know, we should still forgive you. Instead of just being like, no, you're a problem, you're gone.
I wonder if it's just because now, because of media, we see the people that we see are murderers we see the monsters.
Yeah.
We see the Jeffrey Dahmers. We see I can't even think of another good name, but I mean, I think Jeffrey Dahmer pretty much sums it all up. And where maybe back then, they thought of a murderer as somebody who did something stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's weird because, I'll see that regularly. I mean, even up through like the 1950s, maybe even the 1960s, where it's rare for somebody to spend more than 20 years in prison for a murder.
Mm-hmm.
And like now, if you got out after 20 years for a murder, I think people would throw a fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what caused that change, but there's definitely a different opinion back then. I mean, in this case, I feel this is bad. I mean, all murder is bad. If you're going to kill a baby, and please don't. Again, listeners at home, please do not kill a baby. But if you're going to kill a baby,
just like suicide, don't use carbolic acid for the first.
Don't do it. But like, there's ways that the baby could suffer less.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, let's be honest. Cover up the baby's mouth for however long it takes. That's probably a much more peaceful way to go than to have your insides burnt out.
Yes.
Isn't that what we talked about happens?
That is what happens. It's an acid. Everything, lips, tongue, throat, everything right on down is going to be scorched. It's going to hurt like hell. It seems to be fairly quick, but even so, like, that is not a humane choice. So that to me makes this. It's never cool to kill a baby, but like this is worse. Like, this was a poor choice.
I have one more theory on the whole people not wanting to give them life, and I just want to get your feedback on this.
Sure.
How much do you think that stigma of, like you said, they said that they killed this baby because they had it out of wedlock and they didn't want to have the daughter's image tainted by having a child out of wedlock.
I think that factors in.
Yeah, like was that an intense enough thing that people would be like, yeah, I would probably kill a kid in that. I don't really know how that mindset worked back then. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't think it would be enough that, like, if you tried to, and they didn't try to use it as a defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the mother pleaded guilty. Like, she didn't plead not guilty and then explain herself of why. So, like, they know that's not a valid reason. I think it would definitely be sympathetic. Like, the jury would be like, okay, we get it. I don't know that would sway them enough that they wouldn't want you to go to prison for it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, well,
that's a weird thing. I mean, that's like, you know, the same thing where, like, if it used to be hard to get a divorce, so you kill your spouse instead of trying to get a divorce, like, that doesn't make it okay.
It doesn't make it okay, but I bet you since they've made it easier to get a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
a lot less people kill their spouses.
Well, I don't know.
Like,
Maybe.
I'm going to guess that is a less common thing.